Hola amigos, coming up in this episode...
They had this skull of the extinct American native horse. So the next time you see a wild Brumby in Australia, you can be almost certain that it claims partial descent from battle-hardened Iberian war horses.
I was seconds away from a catastrophic wheel failure that could have killed me easily. My immediate thoughts were, damn Chinese bike. It's done less than 4,000 kilometres. It shouldn't have broken.
Now I have to put it all back together, and it's always harder putting things back together than taking them apart.
So I'm in the town of La Serena on the north coast of Chile. And the previous night I had received a terrible email informing me that my father was about to undergo major emergency surgery for cancer. So I decided the best course of action was to just continue riding south down to Santiago, the capital, and from there I could get a flight via New Zealand to Australia should my father's condition worsen.
As I still didn't have any credit cards, there was no point rushing down there. So in the afternoon I walked around a bit and I stumbled upon this local archaeological museum. And I'm glad I went in because there were several really interesting exhibits displayed inside, like this native pot with coffee bean eyes, and this surprisingly modern looking gold jewellery. Somehow it survived being snatched and melted down by those marauding conquistadors. This is interesting too. Remember in the last episode how Dampier's boat was almost sunk by a saboteur who paddled out on a float made out of a horse hide? Maybe they got their idea from this. A native watercraft fashioned out of inflated sea lion skins, which they used to hunt whales with. Speaking of whales, how about this paddle blade fashioned out of fossil whale bone? Talking of bones, they had this skull of the extinct American native horse. It is thought the ancestor of all modern horses evolved in North America, and a few species made it to South America about 3 million years ago. And then horses crossed the Bering Land Bridge about 875,000 years ago into Asia, eventually spreading to Europe and Africa. Only Australia and Antarctica had no horses in prehistory. Then, around 12,000 years ago, the horse became extinct in the Americas, possibly hunted to extinction by newly arrived humans. These ancient horse bones show signs of being worked by humans, but horses were then reintroduced to the Americas by the Spanish, beginning with Columbus, who left breeding stock on the island of Hispaniola on his second and third voyages. Hernan Cortés and Arias Davila took them to Mexico and Panama respectively in the year 1519. The conquistador Francisco Pizarro sourced them from Panama to conquer Peru beginning in 1532, and a year later they were already in Cuzco, from where Pedro Valdivia set off with horses to conquer Chile. Horses remained in the Santiago and Valparaiso area, which became a renowned horse breeding area. As a footnote, Chile started exporting Valparaiso mares to Australia, the first shipment being landed in 1828 by a Captain Richards on the ship called the Tiger. There they were highly valued and interbred with existing stock brought previously by the British. So the next time you see a wild Brumby in Australia, you can be almost certain that it claims partial descent from battle-hardened Iberian war horses brought over by Christopher Columbus, Francisco Pizarro and Pedro de Valdivia. Next up was something really unexpected. A Moai statue from Easter Island, which Chile claims as its own sovereign territory. A display next to it details how surprisingly far this statue has travelled. The story begins in 1951 when a Catalina flying boat made an historic first flight from La Serena to Easter Island, taking 19 hours. At that time the island's entire population was less than 800 people, but nearly everyone turned out to celebrate because it demonstrated that they hadn't been forgotten by the mainland government. As a gesture of gratitude to President Gonzalo Videla, they donated this Moai statue to the city of La Serena, where the president was born and raised, by the way, the eldest of 18 children. In La Serena, it was displayed in a park and later in an army barracks to protect it from vandalism. Then, in 1995, it was exhibited in Europe, in Italy, Spain and France, but was severely damaged twice while being moved. It was repaired in Europe before returning to La Serena. As a side note, the Manutara, the Catalina that made the first flight, damaged its wing taking off for the return flight, so it ended up being transported back to Chile for repairs by ship. So the first Easter Island to South America flight record was made 2 months later by Australian pilot Sir Gordon Taylor, en route from Australia. He also flew a Catalina, and his used bolt-on rocket motors to assist on takeoff. Gordon Taylor was a pioneering aviator who participated in record-breaking flights with Kingsford Smith. I'm getting a bit off topic here, but in Katoomba, the town where I finished high school, there is a Kingsford Smith Memorial Park, and there's also a Catalina Park, where there used to be a Catalina flying boat moored in a lake as a tourist attraction. Leaving the archaeological museum, the first newspaper I saw carried this archaeological headline. There's another FPMR poster. Looks like it's been defaced. Chilean politics ain't sedate. In Chile, the ultra-left often clashes with the ultra-right. Fancy seeing 2 boomerangs for sale in a Chilean hunting and gun supply shop. I guess that's okay, because boomerangs were originally used as hunting devices. This made me laugh. A tango club sign where the sticker of the 2 tango dancers appeared to be bending over each other.
Right, now it's time to pack my bags and head south down to Valparaiso, the port town adjacent to the capital, Santiago. So it was the 15th of March when I hopped on that wacky, loaded up in front of Los Luces Hostel, aiming to head for Valparaiso, which was only 430 kilometers south. It should be easily doable in a day. Heading down Ruta 5 Norte, which is the Pan American, the road was in excellent condition. 4 lanes, 2 lanes up, 2 lanes down, all the way, and I was making good progress. I even filled up my 12-litre plastic jerry can with gasoline so I could make a straight run into the city to a place that I'd booked, which was well in the interior suburbs of Valparaiso. And as I mentioned previously, maybe get a flight back to Australia if my father's condition worsened. However, lesson number 1, things never go according to plan, especially on long-distance motorcycle trips. It was a bit of an overcast day with that Garua fog, and I just let a rip going down the hills, doing 90-something kilometres an hour, when something strange happened. At the bottom of a hill, I felt something go ping or pop, and a slight amount of instability. Foolishly, I ignored it and kept going. And then it happened again, and I thought, is that my imagination? What was that? And probably not the wisest thing to do. I kept going at high speed. Then I felt it on corners, and I thought, what the hell is going on here? And then at the town of Alto Baraza, I felt it happen twice. I was going quite quick because the curves are quite large, being a major highway. They're not like hairpin turns. So I was going around the corner quite fast, and I heard it and I felt it. And it was a major instability wheel wobble, and I thought, what the hell's that? So I decided to stop, pull over and have a look. Initially I couldn't see anything wrong, so I just topped up the tank with gasoline, and I thought, no, there must be something wrong. What was that? It wasn't my imagination. And I looked down, couldn't see anything, and then I saw this. To my horror, there were 7 spokes snapped off at the point where they enter the aluminium rear wheel hub. And 5 of them were adjacent to each other on the brake disc side of the wheel. I couldn't go any further, and I was seconds away from a catastrophic wheel failure that could have killed me easily. My immediate thoughts were, damn Chinese bike. It's done less than 4,000 kilometers. It shouldn't have broken. And the words of my friend Ashley were ringing in my ear. But then I started thinking, maybe I did overload it. But I checked the weight. It was within weight. Those bags look voluminous, but they're full of like lightweight stuff. Most of it is like fluffy jackets and stuff like that for Patagonia. In the end, the root cause ended up being something completely different. And I'll talk about that later. So, after counting my lucky stars, I decided to take stock of the situation. Buses and trucks were just whizzing past at high speed. You know, it wasn't a country lane. This was one of the main highways in Chile. Luckily, I'd pulled up where there was an SOS emergency phone, so I went over to use that. But my run of bad luck continued. After 20 minutes of hitting it, it was making beeping and buzzing noises, but I couldn't get anyone to reply. So I thought, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to flag down someone and ask for assistance. Then, at that point, my luck changed. A well-dressed man pulled up in a nice car. Initially he spoke Spanish, then he switched to English when he realised I wasn't Peruvian like my number plate. And he said he owned a hotel just down the road called Termas de Socos. He would call one of his employees to come and have a look at it. He said he employed a mechanic, so that was pretty cool. And shook my hand, said, I'm sorry, I've got to get my wife down to Santiago, and chuffed off. About 15 minutes later, Senor Arturo's men arrived, and they came to the same conclusion that I did, that the only thing that's going to fix this are new spokes, and I don't have 7 of them handy, so we're going to have to take the bike away somewhere and get the wheel off. And they suggested their hotel. One of the guys was able to contact the rescue truck, but after 40 minutes waiting, it still hadn't arrived. So we actually started pushing the bike the 1 kilometre to the hotel, but then the rescue truck did arrive and we were able to lift it up and we're on our way down to the hotel. Now here we are offloading in the hotel parking lot. Termosocos is a mixture of Spanish and Diaguita, the local indigenous tribe. So it means like hot springs in a mixture of Spanish and Diaguita. And there are hot springs just out the back of the hotel apparently. So I wasted no time getting the wheel off. Now it's a job that I've never done before. I didn't really know what I was doing, but it was pretty simple. Just undo the bolts, knock the axle out, undo the chain and all that stuff. And then when I had a closer look, oh man, all those spokes broken. And now I'm a bit worried that some of these ones that are not broken, they might be weakened or outwardly look okay, but on the point of breaking. So I really need to get this to a proper mechanic and they can check it out. I was so lucky, I didn't come a gutser, as we say in Australia. I was also extremely lucky to be offered a discounted room in this luxury resort.
This was one of the few times in my life when I felt really psychologically stressed. I'd only been on the road a month and my new bike had broken. I had no credit cards. The clock was ticking regarding good weather for Patagonia and my dad was about to face major surgery. But sitting around feeling sorry for myself, that's not the answer. I had to get off my backside and get the wheels turning again, so to speak.
I was thinking I would have to take the wheel to Valparaiso or Santiago, the capital, a few 100 kilometres to get it fixed. But the next day, Senor Marcelo said he was going to Ovalle, a little town about 40 kilometres distant, and there was a Honda shop there where I could take it if I just paid for the gasoline. So we did that, and the attendant there said, leave it with us, we have to take the tyre off to look at the spokes. I came back at lunchtime and he said, we don't have that type of spoke, I'm so sorry, we can't help you. And I thought, oh okay, well how much do I have to pay you for the mounting and dismounting? Just then the owner walked past and he went, wait a minute, we can fix that. And he called an elderly mechanic over and instructed him to cut down thinner but longer spoke from another model bike, a Japanese bike, and the old guy said, yeah, I can do that. So I came back at 7 o'clock and it was fixed. They only replaced 7 because they didn't have a full set.
Mi rueda está completo ahora?
Sí, está completa.
And you can see here in the photo, they were longer but they were thinner. The one behind is the new one and the one in front is the old one, and the old one looks stronger, but who knows, maybe the quality of the metal isn't as good, and I really don't know whether the other ones are on the point of cracking, so as soon as I can I'll get them all replaced, but for now that's a temporary solution.
Now I have to put it all back together, and it's always harder putting things back together than taking them apart.
When the old mechanic gave it back to me, he said, look, this is how you check if they're loose. And you go ding, ding, ding with something metal and they ring like a bell. And if they don't ring like a bell, then something's wrong, something's loose.
The old guy might have had a lot of experience. But he missed this one.
Loose.
This bike doesn't have a centre stand, which makes this job all the more harder.
He also said problems like I had usually happen when you're overweight and the monoshock bottoms out and it gives a shock to the spokes. And I was thinking, but I'm not overweight. But then I did remember them bottoming out in dips and bumps. And I did on that particular day have an extra 12 litres in the plastic jerry can, which would add around about 9 kilograms. The monoshock at the back was adjustable, and because it was new, perhaps I should have kept more of an eye on it and tensioned it up as it wore in. Because probably being new, there's a certain amount of slack that has to be adjusted out at the beginning. And added the extra 9 kilograms, put me over the maximum weight. So pretty much entirely my own fault for having this problem. Coming up in the next episode,
they're supposedly up there. Wow!
I don't know if this is edible, but it certainly looks beautiful. Juicy and... Ow! Ow, 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 ow.
Where have I seen that design before?